Hello, welcome. My name is JesseMcDesign, and today we're going to be finishing off this sculpture. Let's get started. Alright, so if you're curious how I got to this point, go back and watch my previous video. It was me building up this whole thing with spray foam and carving out this boar's head, and then I coated it with this plaster. Is what you're looking at now. It's very messy, I know. What we're gonna start off with is doing a bunch of sanding. I actually started on the bottom just to get a rough idea of what I'm getting myself into. I had sculpted the teeth, some of the teeth and stuff out of like a air dry clay, and a lot of this plaster just chipped right off of that. Who knows why, if it was not completely cured maybe, or if it just wasn't meant for that. Either way, I just chipped it off and we'll just paint over the clay. That's no big deal. The clay still hardens, so I'm not too worried about that. I have already spent quite a few hours, like I said, starting this, and I'll show you that right now. This bottom edge looks fairly nice, but you can kind of see I broke through quite a bit, and I'm gonna have to do some sort of touch-up or replaster or something. I'm not exactly sure how I'm gonna do that quite yet because this plaster is messy. It takes a while to dry. I'm not really sure how I'm gonna fix that part yet, but what we're gonna do is continue sanding this thing. I have a lot to do, and then after that we'll try to figure out a plan to start fixing and touching up all this stuff, because I know that it's gonna happen over this whole thing, and I don't want to put all the time of sanding this and then like recoating it and resanding it and recoating and resanding it. That's just entirely too much time that I don't want to spend. So we're gonna try a couple different paint processes. I might try a rattle can primer to see if that'll fill up some voids and kind of build like a high build type deal, and we can, if we have to, we can sand little spots of that. Or I might just start just painting this thing, and maybe I can layer up enough paint to cover up these little sections. We're gonna end up doing a couple tests, so either way, let's start this off with probably a pretty good time lapse, and I'm just gonna start sanding this thing till there's no more sanding left. Alright, so as you can see, I got this thing into primer. I didn't really film it because, one, it's pretty cold as far as spraying anything, any sort of spray paint. It's like 35, but it's actually the warmest it's been in quite a few weeks, so I wanted to take advantage of it, and I actually went out really early so it had time to cure after I brought it in and warm back up a little bit. As you can see, I'll put in a little bit of a close-up shot. There's still quite a bit that came back through as we sanded, but I just went ahead and just coated this thing in a pretty decent coat of primer. But like I said, it was pretty cold, and that's not ideal for rattle canning, so I just did the best I could. I put a few dusting coats on it and then just kind of just went after it on like the main portions that are like really visible. But now I think what we're gonna do is I'm just gonna start base coating this thing out, since I'm gonna be using acrylics, which is kind of thicker. I have some like paste stuff I might add to it to thicken it up a little bit, maybe. It's not a bad idea, I just kind of thought about that. And we're just gonna start base coating this thing out. That'll also help me see if I'm gonna need more paint or not. I don't think, but there's a couple colors I might. And then obviously there's still a couple like really deep voids that I know I'll have to fix, and I'll just touch those up after we do this first main base coat, and that'll also help me just get a little bit better idea of how this thing's gonna start looking. So let's hop back on the time lapse and start getting a few colors on this thing. Alright, so I got that layer of paint on here. Filled up some stuff, but not really as much as I like to. So what I'm gonna do is, I have some of this like sculpture paste stuff, which is basically acrylic paint with like a thickener type deal inside of it. And if you're using it in its traditional way, it's to create like those really thick impressionistic type painting deals. But so what I did was throw some acrylic paint in here to thin it out a little bit more, so it's not as thick, because it is actually like pretty thick. And I started spreading it on here just to see how it would work, and it's gonna work real nice. I think it's gonna work perfect because it does end up hardening really nice. So we're gonna go ahead and finish covering this thing again, and I will probably have to sand it, or not the whole thing, but most of it, like 1 maybe 2 times in some spots, because I'm already about 50% there with making this thing like really nice, so I might as well just do it and just commit to the project. So let's get a few more time lapses and see if we can't get this thing looking a little bit nicer. Alright, so here's the plan. I did the final sanding on this guy, and I did another quick round of just patching up a few of the major areas that were still kind of bothering me. But my plan is, now that I've decided, we're gonna do a stone kind of textured type deal on this guy. We're gonna make it look like it's made of stone, and we're gonna add some moss and stuff to this to make it look really old. I think that's gonna be a really cool idea, and it'll also help me just mask, you know, all these little imperfections that I'm not super happy with. But also with doing that, we're gonna finish up this plaque by distressing it a little bit with taking a chunk of chain I have and a hatchet, and just kind of beating this thing a little bit, and just putting a couple chunks in it with the hatchet just to make it a little bit more older. And then we're gonna burn this whole thing, and I think the combination of those two, when we finalize the painting on this guy, is gonna look really nice. So what we're gonna do now is actually go and get those paints, because it's still fairly cold out today. It's like a 35-ish. So I want it to warm up as much as possible, because I do want to get this done today. But the cold always isn't best for spray paints, so it should be fine. But we're gonna go get like the, I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's like a rock textured spray paint. It comes out all splattery looking. We're gonna use that as like a base and kind of do a few things and try to get a couple different tones going on. And then we'll probably put in a little bit of a green tone in some areas, and then we'll come back and add the moss on separately with glue and whatnot and make it look really cool and old, like an old rock statue type deal. So let's go get those things, get all these basics done, and then we'll come back for those final details. All right, so there you have it. After quite a few weeks, taking it on mostly the weekends really, so technically not as long as it really seems. It's finally finished. I'm pretty happy with how it is right now. I spent quite a bit of time off camera just doing light gray washes, just slowly bringing this gray lighter and lighter to a tone that I liked. I still think it's a little dark, but I'm pretty happy with where it's at. I also did like a really light green wash in a lot of areas, especially around where the big mossy chunks are, to really make it look like, you know, that moss was just kind of leaking and just coating this whole thing as it gets rained on or whatever may happen in a natural setting. Also, for an idea that came to me pretty last minute, basically right as I was ready to paint this whichever way I decided to, I really like the idea, the whole stone look and it covering it in this mossy stuff to make it look really old and whatnot. And I just kind of treated the plaque like I normally would. I went and redid it from what I originally did in my video. I beat it up a little bit to make it a little more worn in, and then I burnt it really good. And then I just like, and as I was coating the head, I coated the plaque as well in that light gray wash, just to make it look a little, you know, that little gray tone in there. I sanded it down so you can't really tell unless you really look up on it, but it just helps bring it all together into one little nice cohesive thing. You did see in those shots it is a little shiny. I clear coated it last night. It's still a little, I brushed it on so it's a little shiny still. It will matte out and dull down nice. It should look good in a couple more days once it really cures and mattes out. I tried sanding a little bit to help make it look a little bit better for these last couple shots I did, but what are you gonna do? It'll look good over time. It'll look better. And even if it doesn't for whatever weird reason, I can just, you know, sand it or a little bit more and just coat it with like a proper matte clear. I used a matte varnish I usually use on my paintings, which mattes out really nice. So I think just giving it a little bit more time. It's only been maybe 10 hours, you know, I did it last night before I went to bed. So with all that being said, if you like what you saw, give it a thumbs up. It really helps. If you want to see more, hit the subscribe. I'm always over here doing some sort of creative project. Who knows? Sculpture, traditional painting, furniture. Who knows? Leave in the comments below what I should build next. See you on the next one.